Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Elizabeth Barrick. I'm super excited to have you today. This is going to be such a fun class because it's crafting and it's kids crafting. What can be better than that? So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to flip my camera around in just a second and show you the supplies that we're going to need, just in case you weren't able to grab everything. But this is the fun little project we'll be making. It's a little peppermint photo holder, which is so fun. So I am just going to tell you, I had a blast making this. So let me switch my camera around so that you can see our supplies. Okay, so here we go. All right. One thing, if you would like to share your finished project with us, we would love to see it. So ask your adult if they would be willing to share with us, and they can find us at Learn with Michaels on Instagram. And this is me, Elizabeth Barrick, at La Cozy Casita on Instagram as well. And you can use this hashtag, Michaels Kids Club. So we would love to see that. So here we go. Here are our supplies. You are going to need your air dry clay. It came out of this package, and you can use any color you want. If you've already made this on the on-demand craft and you still have other colors to use, hey, why not? Grab some other colors. Definitely. And this can be anything. It does not have to be the peppermint colors if you don't have red and white with you right now. I also grabbed just the green because I want to see if I can use most of my clay to make an even bigger peppermint. So we'll see. And so instead of using this red base, I want to try to make it with a green base, but that's just going to be my opinion. If you want to stick yours with red and white, you certainly can do that as well. Okay, so we are going to do that. Let me turn up my light a little bit. There we go. And then you can grab a chenille stem. If you have one, you can use any color. As you can see on this one, I used teal. I thought that was a fun color. It kind of gave peppermint candy land vibes. So I really like that. But you can use green just like the picture showed. And then we're also going to be using a little rolling pin. You could use either of these rolling pins, whichever you prefer. A little cutter. It's like a pizza cutter. And here is a clay. It's kind of like a clay knife that'll help us cut. It's kind of nice. If you don't have these, just use what you have. You could use a bottle. You could use a real pizza cutter, maybe a ruler. This comes with a fun little crimping roller. We're not going to use this time around, but if you want to use it, by all means, have at it. Okay. So, and then the other thing I have is just this little placemat here. So if you would like to use a placemat, that just kind of keeps things a little clean, you can certainly use that. Okay, so if you have any questions for me, please share in the Q&A. The first thing I'm going to do is open my packages here. Pull up just a little bit. And I'm going to open red, and then I'm going to open white. So we just had on the list some scissors just to open your packages, but if you can do it with your hands, that's fine too. I think these feel so cool. I'd never worked with this type of clay before, and I had the best time. So it's gonna feel kind of wet, but you're just gonna start getting it warmed up by just pulling at it and bringing it back into the center, just like this. And so we're kind of like kneading it. This is kind of a way of kneading, and that's what I'm doing here. Just kind of warming it up, getting it ready to be molded. So fun. So while we're kneading together, I'm going to knead my white, and then I'm going to go in and knead my red, and I'm going to keep them separate. Okay. But while we're doing that, would you please chime in? We love to give shout outs here with Michael. So if you would just please let us know where you are crafting from. If you would love to share your name, we'll give you a shout out if we can, and tell us how old you are. That is just always so fun. We can't see your beautiful crafting faces. So if you would just, this is a way that we can connect with each other. So please let me know where you're from. I am crafting from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I don't think I really need to tell you my age. I'll just let you guess. How about that? So I can see that some of those are coming in. So anytime, you please feel free to let us know. I'm going to open the red. And then Carrie, you can read for us, whoever's chiming in. We would love.
So we have Elisa, who is her and her son are crafting from Texas.
Welcome.
Her boys are 3 and 20 months.
Oh, they're gonna love this.
Yes, we have Jerry, who is 21 and lives in New York.
Welcome.
We have Jason, who is from Virginia and is 10 years old. We have somebody from Massachusetts who recently turned 10.
Happy birthday.
Carly, who's 9. Ella from Washington State.
Hey, Ella.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. I love how this just kind of bonds us all together. We're all so far apart, but it's super, super fun to hear where you're crafting from. I opened the red, and the red clay to me feels a little more damp. So do not be alarmed by that. If your red also feels more damp than your white, it's totally fine. Just keep on kneading it just like I am here. And then go ahead. Is it Carrie? I'm sorry. We were having technical difficulties in the middle. In the beginning, we didn't even catch each other's names, did we?
Yeah, it is Carrie.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're here too, Carrie.
Yeah. I'm also from North Carolina.
Oh, awesome.
We have Ethan from Cleveland, Ohio.
Hey, Ethan.
Hannah from Leesburg, who's 10.
Okie dokie, guys. Are you ready for the next step? And Carrie, you feel free to chime in anytime. I love it. I think the more the merrier. So don't ever feel like you're going to be interrupting me, because you are not. Okay. All
Sure
right.
thing. We do have one question. Can you go over again? What are some good substitutes if they don't have any clay or maybe Play-Doh?
If they don't have clay or Play-Doh,
Maybe or one or the other, they can both be substitute for each other, maybe?
yes, they
Mhm.
definitely can. You can use clay or Play-Doh with these. You can even make your own Play-Doh at home. There's recipes all over the place for using modeling dough. But you can, yes, definitely Play-Doh, definitely clay. It'll feel a little different. What's super cool about this air dry clay is when it dries, it's so light. It's almost like styrofoam. I was really surprised when I made this to feel it the next day after it had dried. You can feel that it's pretty light now. So that'll be the only difference really. If you're making with Play-Doh or clay, it's just going to be a little more dense, but you can certainly use what you have. And if you do not have the exact things that we have or any of those substitutes, just the next time you're out shopping and you pick one up, you can take this class again, because it's going to be on YouTube. So you don't have to worry about missing out on anything, because you can watch it at your own leisure. Okay, so there's always that option. All right, we're going to go ahead and roll our dough. And this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to put it between the palms of our hands like this. and we're just going to roll. Some of you are seasoned crafters and you know how to roll dough already. So I'm just going to kind of roll into a ball like this. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start rolling kind of like a snake a little bit, but we're not going to get too skinny. We're not going to make a skinny snake. It's going to be like a chunky snake. Just like this. I'm just rolling back and forth in my hands. Just like this. I'm going to go ahead and take my paper away just so I can have a little more space here, okay? There we go. Okay. Just rolling. And so if it's wider than your hand, then what you're going to notice is you're going to start getting a skinny part where you're kind of pushing. So just all you have to do is move your hand across like this, just so it's nice and even as best as you can. Okay. All right. So there we have it. There we go. And it does not, I mean, this is, you do not have to measure this out. I was just, sometimes people like to know exactly the size that I have. And this is around 4.5 inches, but it does not have to be that. Okay. Now I'm going to take my little rolling pin. You could either use this one or this one. Or like I said, you could use a bottle. And you're just gently pushing. Just like this. And so what's happening is it's becoming flatter. Do you see that? Is yours becoming flatter as well? So just like that, I'm hardly pushing down on this, just gently pushing. And now I'm going to turn my rolling pin this way, or I could gently pick it up and turn it. And I'm just going to kind of make it a little wider, just like this. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to make this 2 inches wide, okay? At least, maybe even 2.5. If I can get 2.5 inches wide, I'm going to be a happy girl, happy crafter. So you're just moving back and forth like this to try to get it. You're just pressing down a little. And just like this. There we go. And keep on keeping on. So this is the part that we just keep working back and forth. And if you have this one, you know, maybe you're working with a sibling here, just grab. Each of you can have your own, right? I was working on a fur monster project and I got a little bit of the monster's fur in my dough here, but I just picked it off there. That'll be a fun project coming up here with Michael's. You'll really like that one. It's coming in around Valentine's Day. They're so cute. And I thought I got them all and I did not. So are you guys ready for Christmas? Coming so soon. Do you have your decorations up? We put our decorations up last night and we're going to get our tree tonight. So let us know in the Q&A if you have your trees up yet, or if that's a project for this weekend. Some people like to put their trees up before Thanksgiving. I want to know, do you all have your trees up yet? Okay, I think we're just about there.
Hannah has her tree. Mateo has their tree up. Carly says their tree is up and the gifts are wrapped.
Oh boy, Carly, no peeking.
Yep, and then somebody else says that they've almost got 2.5 inches of their dough ready.
All right. Starting to look like a tortilla now, guys. Look. Almost there. I think on this one, I didn't roll it out as wide as I should have, which is why it was just an itty bitty one. but it's kind of fun to have different sized photo holders. All right, how are we doing? Let's see. Just about there. I think we're just about there. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't. Oh yeah, I'm there. Cool. Okay. So if you don't have a ruler, but you have this tool, this is 1 inch. Okay. So you could kind of just measure out, okay, there's 1 inch. And on this side, there's 1 inch, and there's kind of my border between where I'm going to cut. And this will make sense to you in a second, but what we're going to do, we're going to make 1 strip like this, and this will be another strip. Okay, let's move this guy. You come out to 2 inches. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to use my little pizza cutter and my ruler. You don't have to use your ruler, but I'm going to use mine. So I'm going to cut across here, and then I'm going to cut across here. So I'm basically just making a top and a bottom by doing that. Okay. And then see how I've got about 2.5 inches, just like I wanted. And then, and if you are, you know, if you're not a measurer, hey, that's a-okay. Just kind of get some straight lines here. So I'm gently going to put my ruler here. Let me grab this ruler. It's clear. That way you can see exactly what I'm doing. Again, you don't have to be a measuring person to do this. I'm just using my ruler as a straight edge. Okay, so here we go. There's 1 straight edge. Do you see what I did? It just helps me to make a straight line. That's why I use that ruler. I'm going to set my extra dough over here. And now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to match my top to my bottom. And I'm going to make another straight line. Do you see the shape that I've made? I've made a rectangle, a long rectangle. Wow, we've come a long way from the tortilla, haven't we? Okay, so now is where I'm going to, let me cut this in half too. Let's see. Here's my 2 inches. So I've got just a tiny border here. So right here is my 1 inch. See, I just made a little indentation. Or like I said, you can use this. Just make a little tiny indentation. And then I'm going from the top to the bottom. Again, this does not have to be perfect because it's your project. So you can make it however you want. If you want to have a wiggly peppermint, you can sure have a wiggly peppermint. There are no peppermint holder, photo holder police around here. We just want you to have fun. So here's my other inch. So if you're not sure, if you're kind of doing this, if you're more of a big kid kind of doing this on your own, I'm going to zoom in for you and just show you how you can actually measure this, okay? So let's see, I've got the shakies because I moved my, there we go. Okay, so I'm measuring right here, this little 1 inch, that's that line starts where you measure 1 inch. And over where the 1 is, that's exactly 1 inch. The rest is just extra, okay? So you can do that up here too. Put that straight, that first line, not the end of the ruler. Ooh, let me come down a little bit. Not the end of the ruler, but that very first notch on the ruler. That's 1 inch. Just measure my fingernail there. Okay, so then you make a match with those 2 lines with your ruler and whoop, take your little pizza cutter. And there you have it. So we've got our 2 lines here. Okay, so now we're going to gently, ever so gently, I'm just going to take my finger and try to lift the strip. There we go. Now, if I push too hard, I'm going to make some dents into my strips, and I don't want to do that. So let me pull up my camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Just going to set it aside because I'm getting ready to roll out the red.
And can you remind us how long that needs to be again?
Well, this is 5.5 inches. It can be longer or it can be shorter. So let me tell you, if it's longer, you're just going to have more spirals. If it's shorter, you're going to have less spirals. That's the only difference. So it depends on how many spirals you want to have in there. Okay, if you want to have more, then you'll make it longer. If you want less spirals, then make it shorter. Okay. So there's our strips. And then you can do 2 to 3 strips. So if you wanted to if you want to make this bigger, you can use this leftover to make another strip. And I mean, we might as well, right? We've got it. We've got it and we've got the time. We might as well, because this project is a super quick project. And I just love being with you guys. So we might as well. Let's just roll this out. If it sticks, just kind of press it down a little bit. I might switch to this little fun guy. Oh yeah. I like this guy a little better. He works a little faster. Pull up a little. Sometimes I like to get my camera really close so you can see some detail. And then I like for you to see far away too. There we go. So you decide if you want to use 2 or 3 strips. The directions say 2 or 3. So it's your own preference, what you prefer, your opinion. You get to be the boss of your own project. How fun is that? You're the boss. Okie dokes. So now we just measure again. So we're just going to go, what did I say? And it really, truly does not matter. Okay, so I'm going across and across at the top to make kind of a straight edge. Remember that part? And see how it's like all wavy right now? Remember our tortilla? Now we're just going to match the ends here. Peel away that end. Do it again. If you're still working on your regular strips, that's totally fine. The beauty of clay is that you get to start over. So if you feel like you made a mistake, all you have to do is roll it back up and do it again. Isn't that cool? So I'm just measuring. I'm just going to put a little notch in there with my fingernail. Real technical. Or you could use your tool. Might as well use the tool if you've got it here. Okay. So I've measured. And I'm going to... Now the width is more important than the length. So the width is this part. Okay, so if you have a really wide strip and then some skinny strips, you won't be able to see your peppermint as great as you might want to. So that's just something to think about. See, that's a little skinny. And then if you did it too skinny, there's a fix for that. So see how this one is just a little too skinny? Doesn't quite match. Let me bring it. There we go. See, it's just a little skinnier. So there's a fix for that. All you have to do is either make these guys a little skinnier. That's all you have to do. And then they'll even out. Okay. All right. Or make this guy skinnier. Actually, I just made it wider by sewing me. So then you're just going to match these up, okay? So let me trim these because I had a moment there for a second. I thought it was reverse day. I thought it was backwards day, but it's not backwards day. It's regular day. So let me just trim these up. There we go. So that they all just, and if they're not perfect, again, it's totally okay. There we go. I think this is pretty good. Just kind of want them ish around the same width, okay? Now, width is how wide something is. There we go. Not monster fur again. I don't even have pets. I've got a monster fur. Okay, let's go to red, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to layer. So we're going to layer white, then red, then white, then red, then white. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here that we did before. So you roll it into a ball. Roll it like this in the palm of your hand on your table. Just like this. And then we're just going to keep on working at that. There we go. It's like a snake a little bit. Looks pretty. You know how I said once it comes off your hand, where you're pushing down on your hand, that's going to be thinner than the part that comes off. So you just have to remember to move your hand over and roll it out like that. There we go. Cool. All right, now, do you remember what we did? It's rolling time. You're just going to make this flat now. Okay, how are you guys doing? This is the part where we are going to roll this flat so we have a little time to chit chat. So let me know how you're doing. Are you getting the hang of it? Are you enjoying this? Have you done any other winter workshops? I'm teaching one tomorrow. The snowflake watercolor resistant.
Someone says it's hard, but it's still fun, and that they love clay.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, sometimes things are a little tricky. Can I tell you that I have even crafters who do this professionally have trouble sometimes. So I'm really proud of you for sticking with it. And I'm super proud of you for having a positive attitude and saying it's still fun. That makes my heart so happy. Good job. I was working on some jewelry and I was working on a new clasp, and it was giving me the biggest trouble. I was having such a hard time with it. I had to do it over 3 times. But you know who I felt like? Do you know which book character I felt like? I felt like the little engine that could. I just kept saying, I think I can. I think I can. And finally, I figured it out. And now I can say, I know how to make a lobster clasp closure on a bracelet. So when you're done with this, you can say, I know how to mold clay into some cool creations. I bet the measurement part is a little tricky. So remember, I'm kind of making this wide now. So I already went long. Now I'm kind of moving my rolling pin up and down because I'm getting ready to cut my strips. And I need 2 inches wide. Remember that? So I'm definitely there here, but in the skinny area, I want to make sure. Oh, yes. I'm there. Are you guys there? Maybe not here.
Mateo said that the colors that he's using is purple and glittery silver. That sounds really pretty.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. Candyland. Good choice. Yeah, is anybody else using other colors besides red and white? I want to hear your color combinations. All right, we're ready to measure, guys. Okay, so if this is kind of tricky for you, I want to help you out, okay? So let me help you out on this part. The first thing we need to do is make sure we have 2 straight sides, 2 flat sides. So I'm just going to take my ruler. If you do not have a ruler, just take your rolling pin and go, wow, just like that. There you go. Doesn't have to be straight if you don't want it to be, because you can always fix it later. Okay. There we go. So now I have my 2 straight sides and I'm just connecting. And what people call this is a straight edge. So even if you have a piece of cardboard from a cereal box or a book or anything like that, a piece of plastic with a straight edge, you can do the same thing that I'm doing with this ruler here. I'm only using the ruler because it's giving me a straight edge for this part. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing up here. Here we go. Pizza cutter all the way across. Whoopsies. There we go. And then just remove this. Okay, now is the time that we like to measure 2 inches. So I've got 1 inch here. So I've got my ruler, the end of my ruler at the top of my dough, like that. And then I'm going to find the number 1. Go down, number 1. And you're just going to make a line like that. And then what you're going to do is you can either flip your ruler over like this. And those of you who are experienced crafters, I'm so thankful for you and your patience as I'm teaching our younger crafters how to measure. And so you're just going to line your ruler on the bottom of your dough here. Find the number 1. Where is it? Whoop, there it is. And you're just going to make another line like that. And you do the same thing on this side, because remember, we're trying to connect the lines, right? So come up. I've got my measurement here. Here's the number 1. Make a line. And then turn my ruler around. Get to the top of my ruler. Come down to the number 1. That's how you measure 1 inch. Now I got my long one and I'm just going to make the straight line here. Pizza cutter time. Do you guys love to watch the pizza guys in the pizza shops cut the pizza? I totally love that. They can do it so fast. They're like, what? They get all 8 slices so quick. It's amazing to me. There we go. So now I don't need this middle part. So I'm going to take this part. Ooh, I'm going to have lots of spirals on this one, guys. Oop, that didn't cut all the way through. And if it doesn't cut all the way through, just go through again. The beauty of clay. There we go. So now we have our strips. Okay. So I'm going to make these guys even. And remember, I have to make these even with the white. Remember that? We need to make all of these even. So now I'm lining them all up. So we have 2 and 3. So I made 3. You could do a third, shall we? How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good. Okay, we have time. Why not? And then, so now you can kind of see what we've got there. And make one more. Are you guys doing okay? Any questions?
No questions so far.
Right, good job, guys. And then just give them, remember that width here. Go this way. Oopsies, I'm out of the shot. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. I like these little mats. Keeps your surfaces clean.
Can you remind us of how we can keep the clay even?
As far as thickness or length?
Ooh, good question. I think that they mean length.
Okay, so length, I just kind of made these, let's see. I'm going by this white one. It's 6.5. 6.5. But you can decide, like, see how this white one is kind of short? Let's see here. Let me get him a little longer. So, you know, this, we're going to layer these up on top of each other, and then we're going to roll them. Okay. Let's see here. Oopsies. Look at chicken here. All right, here we go. Just measure this out for 1 inch. So this is what we've done all along here. There we go.
Jerry says he loves doing Michael's Zoom art club classes.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I
And
love them. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mila says she'll be 11 in 14 days from Philadelphia.
Oh, happy birthday. That's very exciting. Wow. What a fun time to have a birthday. That's super fun. All righty. So cut the ends so they are all even, okay? So we're going to make all of these even now. So here is I might not, we'll see. Let's get this a little, come on. This third one is giving us a run for our money though. That's the problem. Right, guys? It's easy to make those two just perfectly twinning. It's the triplet that's given us the trouble. The triplet does not want to obey. All right, so we're going to make these all even, right? Okay, so we are going to go, you can decide how you want to layer yours, okay? I've got to cut some of these ends here. Cut this guy. We're going to have to fudge a little bit of these. They're all a little kind of the same size here. There we go. I have to make a decision if I want to use this guy or not. What do you guys think? Should we do all three or just go 2 by 2? This one's struggling. This red strip is struggling. If your red strip is not struggling, maybe you should go ahead and use it. Oh man. See, that just answered the question. Okay, I'm just going to do the 2 red strips. Okay. It's the third that is giving us, or at least me, maybe yours all look the same. All right, so we are going to go and we're going to layer our peppermints, okay? So here we go. Here are your strips. They should all be even. See, my third strip is not agreeing with me. So I'm going to stick with my 2 strips. If you want, and you were more successful in having 3 exact same strips of the white and 3 exact strips of red, then you can use all 3. Okay. I'm going to use 2. You use 3 if you want. I'm going to put these aside. Okay. I'm going to use these because I like that they're pretty much the same size. Okay. Yours will not change from mine. If you choose to use 3, you should use 3 in all 6. Okay. So this is what we do. We're going to go white. If you want the outside of yours to be red, start with red. If you want the outside of your peppermint to be white, start with white. So I've got white. And now I'm going to use red. So I'm going to gently pick it up and put it on top of the white. Gently, gently. Just kind of lay it on top. Okay. Now I can tell that my red is it's overlapping. And so I'm just going to cut that extra off. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the white and put it on top of the red. Just like that. You can see that it's not quite as wide, and that's okay. And now I'm going to take the red and layer it on top. Now, like I said, these are not going to be perfect because we're not using molds or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to cut the end there. There we have it. Okay, so you can see I have white, red, white, red, white, red, white, red. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim a little bit of this off. There we go. Just taking a little bit of it off. You don't have to. So you don't want to seal it either. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to roll. So I'm going to start from the bottom and roll up. Okay. So I'm just rolling, rolling. And I'm just kind of keeping it tight. This might be a little tricky for our younger friends. Just keep rolling up. And as you can see, it's becoming our peppermint. Look at how cute. Isn't that adorable? I think I like the way the white turned out. So you have 2 sides here, and you can tell that I made mine a little longer on this one. I love the look of that. Okay, so now we need to make, so I'm just going to set this here. We need to make a foot for this because once it dries, we don't want it to roll away. You could just kind of press it down a little bit if you wanted to. Now be real careful when you touch this. You don't want to bend these, okay? So just kind of hold it by the top and the bottom like this. Now I'm just going to create a little foot here, and this is going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. All you have to do is make that hot dog again and just kind of press down just like this. And you can make it round or square if you like. But you're just going to set your peppermint right on top. I'm going to show you just like this. So it's going to create a stand for you. Okay. So I just placed this piece, just kind of barely set it on top. It'll stick to itself. Okay. All right. Last part. Now what we're going to do, and I didn't grab my green, but because I had plenty of white, because remember I chickened out and I didn't use all the white. So You do not, I just used it since it was here. If you want to use a different color base, by all means, use it. Okay, so I'm going to cut this pipe cleaner right in half, just like that. Okay, now you're going to wrap it around your finger, just like this, or you could wrap it around a pencil. And I'm just creating the same kind of spiral, just like that. I'm leaving a little end. Did you see how I did that? I'm going to show you again. I'm going to use this one and I'll show you again. If you have trouble wrapping it around your finger, you can certainly use a pencil. So just put it around a pencil or any round object, a pen you could do, and then pull it back off. Okay. So you could do it this way and make sure you leave a little stem. I like it this. I like to use this one. This you could put multiple pictures on if you wanted to. And then you're kind of just going to make it look a little bit like a question mark. Do you see that? It kind of looks like a question mark, doesn't it? And then you're going to gently, ever so gently, stick it into your peppermint. And I had a piece that just landed on there. That's totally fine. Let's turn it this way. Okay. So you're just going to stick it in gently. Remember, I'm not squeezing. Just gently push it in. Just like that. And then you're going to let it dry for 24 hours. Okay. Once it dries, then you could put a picture on it if you wanted. You could put a picture on any of those slats. You could also make a name card. Of course, this is too big, but you could use you could make a little card and you could put it at your Christmas dinner table and put people's names on them, which would be really fun to do. You could make a whole bunch of these, like Candyland colors, which are super fun. Little kind of like Santa's Elves workshop dinner or something. That would be super duper fun to do. So look at how fun those turned out. I love those. Okay, I'm going to show you, let me clear off a little space here. I'm going to show you some things that are coming next. Like I said, tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching the watercolor resistant snowflake class. Let me zoom in so you can see just a little picture of it, of what it's going to look like. And it's kind of like a little ornament if you want. Sure you saw this online. This one's going to be really fun. It's painting and coloring. And then I'm also going to be teaching, so this one's tomorrow, and then this one's going to be on December 9th, and I'm going to be making this little painted clay ornament dish. So there's 12 classes that you can get involved in. And again, let me pull back. Please let us see your smiling faces if you'd like to share and what you did, and tag us at Learn with Michaels. And this is me at La Cozy Casita on Instagram. So if your adult would like to share your final project, we'd certainly love to share that with our viewers. We would definitely love that. And then hashtag Michaels Kids Club. All right, I'm going to switch, let's see here, so that you can see me and I can say goodbye to you. All right. I hope you had a great time. I know I did, and I'm so excited that you joined us. I hope you learned something new. I did. The first time I used this, I learned something new. I always like to use new things, new ingredients, new supplies, lots of things to learn, new ways to craft. I think that's super fun. I'm really proud of you for trying something new, or if you've done this before, I'm really proud of you for joining us. And I hope to see some of you tomorrow. You can go to the Michaels website to sign up for our next class or even the app. And I hope to see you there. Bye, friends.